The stars died one by one, not in the natural way that stars should die, but quickly, violently, as something dark moved through space and killed them. The colonies on the outer rim sent their final messages before they went silent. The messages were always the same. Strange ships appeared from nowhere. They did not negotiate. They did not communicate. They simply began to eat everything. Captain Taemin stood on the bridge of the HKSS Defiant and watched the tactical display with growing horror. Each red dot represented a human colony. Each red dot that blinked out represented millions of dead people. The dots were blinking out faster now. The Defiant was not a warship. It had been a mining vessel once, designed to crack asteroids and haul ore. When the enemy arrived, the human military took every ship they could find and bolted weapons onto them. The Defiant got 6 plasma cannons and some armor plating. It was not enough. Nothing seemed to be enough against these creatures. "Captain, incoming transmission from Fleet Command," said Hyun-soo from the navigation station. He was young, barely 25, with steady hands that never shook even when the ship was under fire. Taemin nodded. "Put it through." Admiral Park's face appeared on the main screen. The old man looked tired, older than his 60 years. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. We are forming a defensive line at the Hanara system. All vessels are ordered to rendezvous there immediately. We make our stand here. We do not retreat further." The transmission ended. Taemin looked at the star map. The Hanara system was 3 days away at maximum speed. Behind them, the enemy was maybe a day away. They would reach Hanara before the enemy did, but not by much. "Set course for Hanara," Taemin said quietly. "Maximum speed." Yuna, the chief engineer, looked up from her station. She was a short woman with oil-stained hands and fierce eyes. "Captain, the engines are already running hot. If we push them harder, we might blow a manifold." "Then fix it if it breaks," Taemin said. "We need to get there." The Defiant jumped to faster than light speed, and the stars stretched into lines. For 3 days, they traveled in silence. The crew knew what was coming. They had all seen the reports. The enemy ships were massive, organic-looking things that seemed to be alive. They could adapt to any weapon, learning from each attack and evolving defenses in minutes. Ships that survived the first encounter rarely survived the second. People called them the Devourers. It was a good name. They devoured planets, stripped them down to bare rock, and moved on to the next one. No one knew where they came from or what they wanted. They just consumed everything in their path. When the Defiant arrived at Hanara, over 300 human ships were already there. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and dozens of converted civilian vessels like the Defiant. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Taemin hoped it would be enough. It was not enough. The Devourers arrived 6 hours later. They came in a swarm, hundreds of ships of different sizes. The smallest were as big as a house. The largest were the size of moons. They moved together like a school of fish, perfectly coordinated, as if controlled by a single mind. The human fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts, missiles, railgun rounds, everything humanity had. The first wave of attacks destroyed dozens of Devourer ships. They exploded in bursts of green fire and twisted metal. The human crews cheered. Then the second wave of attacks hit the enemy. This time shields appeared around the Devourer ships. Shields that had not been there before. The attacks bounced off harmlessly. The Devourers had learned. The enemy returned fire. Their weapons were strange. Beams of energy that seemed to pull ships apart from the inside. One moment a human battleship was there, firing its guns. The next moment it was expanding outward in a cloud of debris and bodies. "All ships, attack pattern Delta." Admiral Park's voice crackled over the communications channel. "Focus fire on the large ones." The human fleet tried to coordinate, but the Devourers were faster. They split into smaller groups and surrounded the human ships. Taemin watched in horror as the fleet was torn apart. Dozens of ships died every minute. The space around Hanara filled with wreckage and debris. "Captain, we need to fall back," Yuna shouted over the sound of alarms. The Defiant shook as enemy fire hit the shields. "We cannot win this." Taemin gripped the armrests of his chair. Every instinct told him to stay and fight, to stand with the fleet, but his mind told him something different. His mind told him that staying here meant death for his entire crew. 73 people who trusted him to keep them alive. "All hands prepare for emergency jump," Taemin said. His voice was calm, even though his heart was racing. "Hyun-soo, plot a course out of the system, anywhere, just get us out." "Captain, Fleet Command ordered us to hold the line," said Ji-woo, his second in command. She was a tall woman with a scar on her left cheek from an old accident. She looked at him with confused eyes. "I am giving a new order," Taemin said. "We are leaving now." The Defiant turned away from the battle and jumped to faster than light speed. Behind them, the fleet continued to fight and die. Taemin watched the tactical display until it went out of range. When the battle finally disappeared from the screen, over 200 human ships were destroyed. The Hanara system was lost. The crew of the Defiant stood in silence. Some of them were crying. Others looked angry. They all looked at their captain with different eyes now. Some saw a man who had saved their lives. Others saw a coward who had abandoned his brothers and sisters to die. Taemin felt the weight of their stares. He had made his choice. He would live with it, whatever came next. 3 days later, they intercepted a transmission from a surviving scout ship. The transmission was broken, filled with static, but the message was clear. The Devourers were not attacking randomly. They were following a pattern, moving in a specific direction through human space. They were herding humanity towards something. Taemin studied the star charts for hours. He marked every planet the Devourers had attacked. He drew lines between them, and slowly he began to see it. The pattern, the Devourers were not just consuming worlds. They were pushing humanity toward a specific location. They were pushing humanity toward Earth. "We need to warn them," Taemin said to the empty bridge. Outside the window, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere out there, the Devourers were coming, and humanity was running out of places to hide. Firebase Meridian floated in space like a steel fortress. It was humanity's last major stronghold between the outer colonies and Earth. 10,000 people lived there, soldiers and civilians alike. When the Defiant requested docking permission, the response was cold and hostile. "HKSS Defiant, you are ordered to dock at Bay 17. Captain Taemin is to report immediately to the command center. He is under arrest for desertion." Taemin expected this. He knew what would happen when he ran from the battle at Hanara. He had chosen to save his crew instead of dying with the fleet. Now he would face the consequences. 2 military police officers waited at the docking bay. They put restraints on Taemin's wrists and led him away. His crew watched in silence as their captain was taken. Jiwoo, his second-in-command, wanted to protest, but Taemin shook his head. "Take care of the ship," he said. "Take care of the crew." The command center was filled with officers studying displays and shouting orders. Admiral Chen sat behind a large desk, his face hard as stone. He did not invite Taemin to sit down. "You abandoned your post," the admiral said. "While brave men and women died fighting, you ran away. Do you have anything to say?" Taemin stood straight. "I have information about the enemy. They are following a pattern. They are herding us toward Earth. We need to warn everyone and prepare a defense." Admiral Chen slammed his hand on the desk. "You do not get to give strategic advice after what you did. You are a coward and a deserter. Take him to the brig." The guards dragged Taemin away. He spent the next 2 days in a small cell with nothing but his thoughts. He wondered if anyone would listen. He wondered if humanity had any chance at all. On the second night, the cell door opened. Jiwoo stood there with a plasma pistol in her hand. Behind her was Dae-jung, the ship's hacker, holding a data pad. "We are breaking you out," Jiwoo said simply. "That is a bad idea," Taemin said, but he was already standing up. "We found something," Dae-jung said as they moved through the corridors. He was a thin man with nervous energy, always moving, always talking. They broke into the classified archives. The Devourers attacked before, long ago. 60,000 years ago. Taemin stopped walking. "What?" "Ancient humans encountered them," Dae-jung continued. "Most of the records are corrupted, but there is something called the Ghost Protocol. It is a way to hide from them. Not from their sensors, but from their mind. They think like a hive, all connected. The Ghost Protocol tricks them into thinking a ship is dead." They reached the docking bay where the Defiant waited. The crew was already there, preparing the ship for departure. Yuna was at the engine controls. Hyunsu was at navigation. Sung-ho, the young gunner, was checking the weapons. Hyunji, the medical officer, was securing the medical bay. "Everyone is here," Jiwoo said. "We all chose to come. We believe in you, Captain." Taemin looked at his crew. 73 people, all willing to become criminals for him. "If we do this, we can never come back. They will call us traitors." "Then we are traitors together," Yuna said with a small smile. The Defiant launched from Firebase Meridian without permission. Alarms blared. Security ships tried to stop them, but the Defiant was faster. They jumped to faster-than-light speed and disappeared. Inside the ship, Daejung explained what he had found. The Ghost Protocol required a massive energy burst followed by complete silence. The ship had to overload its reactor, creating an explosion of energy that looked like a ship dying. Then every system had to shut down completely. No power, no movement, no signals. The ship would drift like a dead hulk in space. If it worked, the Devourers would scan the ship, detect no life signs, and move on. If it did not work, everyone would die. There is more, Daejung said, his voice dropping. The archives mention something else. The Devourers are attracted to certain energy signatures. Whatever humanity has been building in secret near Earth, it is what brought them. They are drawn to it like insects to light. What is humanity building? Taemin asked. The files did not say, but whatever it is, the Devourers want it badly enough to cross the galaxy. 2 hours after they escaped, Firebase Meridian sent out a distress signal. The Devourers had found it. Taemin ordered the Defiant to turn around, but they were too far away. They could only listen to the radio transmissions as Firebase Meridian fought and died. The battle lasted 1 hour. 10,000 people died. The station broke apart and tumbled through space, a broken shell of twisted metal. The crew of the Defiant listened in silence. Some cried, others sat with blank faces, too shocked to feel anything. They had escaped, but at what cost? We need to test the Ghost Protocol, Taemin said finally. If it works, we can teach it to others. We can fight back. Yuna worked for 3 days straight modifying the Defiant's reactor. She barely ate or slept. The rest of the crew helped where they could, running cables and adjusting systems. Everyone knew this was their only chance. We need to test it in Devourer territory, Yuna said. We need to know if they ignore us when we play dead. Taemin made the decision quickly. We go to New Kyoto. It was one of the first colonies they destroyed. If the Devourers are still there, we will test the protocol. The crew voted. It was unanimous. They would risk everything to prove this could work. As the Defiant traveled toward New Kyoto, Taemin gathered everyone in the cargo bay. 73 faces looked at him, young and old, men and women, all of them scared but determined. I will not lie to you, Taemin said. This might not work. We might die, but if we succeed, we give humanity a weapon. We give them hope. That is worth the risk. Sung Ho, the youngest crew member at 19, raised his hand. Captain, if we die, at least we die doing something that matters. That is better than hiding and waiting for the end. The others nodded. They understood. The Defiant continued toward New Kyoto, toward the Devourers, toward certain death or impossible victory. There was no middle ground anymore. Either the Ghost Protocol worked, or humanity would fall world by world until nothing remained but empty planets and silent stars. Taemin stood on the bridge and watched the stars stream past. He thought about the people at Hanara who died fighting. He thought about Firebase Meridian and its 10,000 souls. He thought about all the colonies that had gone silent. We will not let you die for nothing, he whispered to the dead. We will find a way to fight back. The ship flew on through the darkness, carrying its crew toward their fate. New Kyoto appeared on the view screen like a corpse. The planet had once been green and blue, covered in forests and oceans. Now it was gray and dead, stripped down to bare rock. Nothing moved on its surface. Nothing lived. I am reading multiple Devourer signatures in orbit, Hyunsu said quietly. His hands moved across the navigation controls. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Taemin leaned forward in his chair. Through the window, he could see the massive shapes of Devourer ships. They orbited the dead planet like vultures, breaking it apart piece by piece. Smaller ships moved between them, carrying chunks of material to the larger vessels. They are eating the entire planet, Yunji whispered. The medical officer stood at the back of the bridge, her face pale. How long until there is nothing left? At this rate, maybe another month, Daejung said, studying his sensors. Then they will move to the next world and do it again. Yuna came up from the engine room. Her hands were covered in grease and her eyes were red from lack of sleep. The reactor is ready, Captain. We can overload it whenever you give the order. But I need to warn you. Once we start, there is no stopping it. We either finish the sequence or the reactor explodes and kills us all. Understood, Taemin said. He looked at his crew. This is your last chance to change your minds. Once we begin, we are committed. We drift dead in space surrounded by the enemy. If the Ghost Protocol does not work, we die. No one moved. No one spoke. They had all made their choice. Begin the approach, Taemin ordered. Hyunsu, take us through the debris field. Use the wreckage for cover as long as possible. The Defiant moved slowly toward New Kyoto. The space around the planet was filled with debris from destroyed human ships and pieces of the planet itself. Hyunsu navigated carefully, using the floating wreckage to hide the Defiant's signature. They got within 10,000 kilometers of the planet before the Devourers noticed them. 3 small enemy ships broke formation and moved to intercept. Enemy vessels approaching, Sung-ho reported from the weapons station. His finger hovered over the firing controls. Do I engage? No, Taemin said. Hold fire. Yuna, begin the sequence now. Down in the engine room, Yuna's hands flew across the controls. The reactor began to whine, its pitch rising higher and higher. Energy readings spiked. Warning lights flashed red across every console on the ship. Reactor at 200%, Yuna's voice came through the communication system. 250. 300. The ship began to shake. Objects rattled on shelves. The lights flickered. The enemy ships were getting closer, their weapons charging. 350. 400%, Yuna said. Her voice was steady despite the danger. Prepare for energy bloom in 3, 2, 1. The reactor released all its energy at once. The Defiant lit up like a star-going supernova. Energy poured out in every direction, bright enough to blind anyone looking directly at it. Every sensor within 100,000 kilometers detected it. Then, exactly as planned, everything shut down. The lights died. The engines stopped. Life support dropped to minimal levels. The artificial gravity cut out and everyone floated in weightlessness. The ship went completely silent except for the quiet breathing of 73 people. Through the windows, they could see the Devourer ships approaching. The massive alien vessels moved slowly, their strange organic shapes twisting in the darkness. They came closer and closer until they surrounded the Defiant. No one moved. No one dared to breathe too loudly. They floated in the darkness and waited. A Devourer scout ship, smaller than the others but still 10 times the size of the Defiant, drifted right next to them. It was so close they could see details on its hull. The surface looked like it was covered in tumors or growths, pulsing with a faint green light. Strange protrusions extended from its body, scanning the Defiant with unknown sensors. Taemin held his breath. The scout ship was right outside the window, maybe 50 meters away. He could see organic material flowing across its surface like veins carrying blood. It was alive. The ship was alive. The seconds stretched into minutes. The Devourer scout completed its scan. Then slowly it moved away. The other enemy ships followed. They drifted back to their positions around New Kyoto and resumed their work of destroying the planet. They had ignored the Defiant. The Ghost Protocol worked. For 10 more minutes, the crew waited in silence. No one celebrated. They needed to be sure. Finally, Taemin gave the order. Yuna, restart the reactor. Minimal power only. We drift away slowly like a piece of debris. The reactor came back online with a soft hum. Power returned to essential systems. The lights stayed off. They needed to maintain the illusion of being dead wreckage. Hyunsu used minimal thrusters to push them away from New Kyoto, moving at a crawl. It took 6 hours to get far enough away to feel safe. 6 hours of floating in the darkness, expecting at any moment to be discovered and destroyed. When they finally reached a safe distance, Taemin allowed full power to return. The lights came on. The crew cheered and hugged each other. They had survived. But then Daijung noticed something on his sensors. Captain, I am picking up a signal from the planet's surface. It is faint, but it is definitely human. Everyone went quiet. A human signal on a dead world? Are you sure? Taemin asked. Positive. It is coming from underground beneath what used to be the capital city. Jiwoo looked at the captain. It could be survivors. Someone might still be alive down there. Or it could be a trap, Yuna said. We just proved the Ghost Protocol works. We should take this information back to Earth. We should not risk everything for a signal that might be nothing. Taemin studied the planet on the view screen. Everything logical told him Yuna was right. They should leave. But something else, something deeper told him they had to investigate. We go down, he said. If someone survived a Devourer attack, they might know something we need to know. We take a shuttle with minimal power. 4 people maximum. I am coming, Jiwoo said immediately. Me too, Hyunsu added. You need a tech specialist, Daejung said. I am coming. They took a small shuttle from the Defiant's cargo bay. The tiny vessel had just enough power to descend to the planet and return. Anything more might alert the Devourers. The descent was terrifying. They fell through the atmosphere with engines barely running, hoping the enemy would not notice one small object among the thousands of pieces of debris falling from orbit. The surface of New Kyoto was a nightmare landscape of gray rock and destroyed cities. Daejung guided them to the signal source. It came from beneath the ruins of what had been a university. They landed near a collapsed building and found an entrance to underground tunnels. The tunnels led deep into the earth. Emergency lights flickered weakly, powered by some hidden source. They followed the signal for 20 minutes, moving through corridors filled with dust and silence. Finally, they found a sealed door. Daejung hacked the lock and it opened with a hiss of air. Inside was a small bunker, filled with scientific equipment. And sitting at a computer console was a woman. She turned to look at them. Her hair was long and unkempt. Her clothes were dirty. Her eyes were wild but also intelligent and aware. "You are real," she said. "I thought I was hallucinating again." "Who are you?" Taemin asked. "Dr. Minji," the woman said. She laughed, a sound that was almost a sob. "Xenobiologist. I have been studying the Devourers for 3 years. 3 years alone in this hole, eating synthesized paste and drinking recycled water. Do you have any real food?" They gave her some ration bars from their packs. She ate them like she was starving, which she probably was. "Why are you here?" Taemin asked. "Why did you stay?" Minji pointed at her computer screens. They showed diagrams and data that meant nothing to Taemin. "Because I found their weakness. The Devourers have a weakness. I know how to hurt them." Minji's bunker was small and cramped, filled with 3 years of research. Computer screens covered the walls, displaying data and images of Devourer ships. Some screens showed diagrams of their internal structure. Others tracked their movements across space. "They are not individual ships," Minji explained. She moved from screen to screen, gesturing wildly. Her hands shook from excitement or malnutrition, maybe both. "They are nodes. Pieces of a single consciousness. One mind controlling thousands of bodies." Taemin tried to understand. "Like a hive mind?" "Exactly. Each ship is connected to all the others through some kind of quantum link. They share information instantly. When one learns, they all learn. That is why they adapt so quickly to our weapons." Daejung studied the data on the screens. "If they are all connected, is there a central point? A main brain?" Minji smiled. It was not a happy smile. "There is. I call it the hub. Every regional swarm has one. It coordinates all the others, keeps them synchronized. Without it, the individual ships become confused. They cannot work together. So if we destroy the hub, we can stop them," Jiwoo asked. "Not stop them permanently," Minji said, "but disrupt them. Without the hub, a regional swarm cannot coordinate attacks. They become individual ships instead of one unified force. Much easier to fight." She pulled up another screen. This one showed a map of space with red dots marking Devourer positions. "The problem is the hub only activates during a major assault. When the swarm converges for a big attack, the hub comes online to coordinate everything. The rest of the time it stays hidden." "How do you know this?" Taemin asked. Minji pointed at the ceiling. "Because I watched them destroy this world. I was in orbit doing research when they arrived. I saw the hub activate. I saw how they synchronized their attack. Then I crashed here and have been hiding ever since, studying their remains and intercepting their signals." Hyun-soo was looking at the map. "The Devourers are converging on Earth. If what you say is true, their hub will activate there. During the final assault." "Yes," Minji said. "And there is more. They are attracted to something on Earth, some kind of energy signature. I do not know what it is, but they want it badly. That is why they saved Earth for last. That is why they herded humanity back to its homeworld." The 4 of them looked at each other. The pieces were falling into place. The pattern Taemin had seen. The way the Devourers moved, it was all leading to Earth. "We need to get this information back to the fleet," Jiwoo said. "If we can identify the hub during the attack and destroy it, we have a chance." "There is a problem," Minji said. Her voice grew quiet. "The hub is always at the center of the swarm, protected by hundreds of other ships. Getting to it would require flying through the entire enemy force. It would be suicide." They were silent for a moment. Outside the bunker, the dead world waited. Above them, Devourer ships continued their work of dismantling the planet piece by piece. "We need to leave," Taemin said finally. "Minji, can you walk? Can you make it back to our shuttle?" I have been walking these tunnels for 3 years, she said. I can make it. They gathered her research data onto portable drives and prepared to leave. But as they reached the bunker door, alarms started blaring on Daejung's scanner. Devoured patrol approaching the surface, he said. They are coming this way. They detected the shuttle, Hyun-soo said. We need to move now. They ran through the tunnels. Behind them they could hear sounds. Mechanical sounds mixed with organic ones. The Devourers were entering the underground passages. They were hunting. Minji struggled to keep up. 3 years of poor food and no exercise had weakened her. Jiwoo grabbed her arm and helped her along. They moved as fast as they could through the darkness. The sounds grew louder. Whatever was following them was getting closer. They could see lights behind them now, strange green lights that moved along the walls like searching fingers. They reached the surface and ran for the shuttle. It sat where they had left it, partially buried in gray dust. Taemin hit the door control and nothing happened. The power is off, Daejung said. He pulled off an access panel and started working on the wiring. Give me 30 seconds. They did not have 30 seconds. A Devourer scout emerged from the tunnel entrance. It was smaller than the ones in space, about the size of a car, but it moved fast. Its surface rippled and changed as it scanned them. Get down, Sang-ho would have said if he was there. But Hyun-soo pulled a plasma pistol instead and fired. The bolt hit the scout and it recoiled, damaged but not destroyed. Its surface began to change, adapting to the plasma. Door is open, Daejung shouted. They scrambled into the shuttle. Taemin took the pilot seat and fired the engines. The shuttle lifted off just as more scouts emerged from the tunnels. They fired at the shuttle with energy beams, but the small craft was already accelerating away. The climb to orbit was desperate. Devourer ships detected them and moved to intercept. Taemin pushed the engines to maximum, weaving between pieces of debris and destroyed buildings. Behind them, energy beams carved through the air. Defiant, this is the shuttle, Taemin said into the radio. We are coming in hot. Prepare to move the moment we dock, Yuna's voice crackled back. We see you, Captain. Bay doors are open. The shuttle shot out of the atmosphere with 3 Devourer scouts following. The Defiant was waiting, engines already running. The moment the shuttle entered the docking bay, Yuna engaged the main drive. The Defiant jumped to faster-than-light speed. The Devourer scouts tried to follow, but they were too slow. The ship escaped into the darkness between stars. In the medical bay, Yoonji examined Minji. The scientist was dehydrated and malnourished, but otherwise healthy. 3 years of survival had made her tough. You did well to stay alive so long, Yoonji said as she set up an IV to give Minji fluids and nutrients. I had a reason to stay alive, Minji said. I needed to understand them. I needed to find their weakness. She looked at Taemin. Now I have. Now someone can use it. The crew gathered in the cargo bay. 73 people plus 1 new arrival. Minji stood before them and explained everything she had learned. The hub, the way the Devourers connected, their attraction to whatever was on Earth. So our own planet is bait, Sung-ho said bitterly. Whatever we built there, it called them to us. Perhaps, Minji said. Or perhaps they would have come anyway. It does not matter now. What matters is we know how to hurt them. Taemin looked at the star charts. Earth was still 2 weeks away at maximum speed. The Defiant could get there before the final attack, but only barely. We take this information to Earth, he said. We warn them about the hub. We give humanity a fighting chance. They might arrest you again, Jiwoo pointed out. We are still deserters and criminals in their eyes. Then they arrest me, Taemin said. But first they listen. They have to listen. The Defiant set course for Earth. As they traveled through space, Minji worked with Yuna and Daejung to analyze her data. They created detailed maps of Devourer swarm patterns. They identified the likely position where the hub would appear during the final assault. It will be at the center, Minji said, pointing at a holographic display, protected by hundreds of ships. To reach it, you would need to penetrate the entire swarm. 1 ship could not do it, Yuna said, even with the Ghost Protocol. They would detect weapons fire the moment you attack. Then we do not use 1 ship, Taemin said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. We use the entire human fleet. We coordinate everything. Every ship attacks at once, creating chaos. And while the Devourers are distracted, 1 ship uses the Ghost Protocol to drift to the hub undetected. It would still be suicide for that 1 ship, Jiwoo said. Getting to the hub is one thing. Destroying it and escaping is another. Taemin did not answer. He knew she was right. The ship that went for the hub would not come back. The Defiant continued toward Earth, carrying its crew and their desperate plan. Behind them, the Devourers followed. The final battle was coming. Earth appeared on the view screen like a blue and white jewel. Home. Taemin had not seen it in 5 years. He had almost forgotten how beautiful it was, but the beauty was surrounded by horror. Hundreds of Devourer ships filled the space around Earth. They had not begun their final assault yet, but they were gathering. More arrived every hour, jumping in from other systems. The swarm was forming. I count over 600 enemy vessels, Hyun-Soo said quietly. And more coming. The human defense fleet was there too, smaller but determined. Maybe 200 ships, everything humanity had left. They formed a defensive sphere around Earth, waiting for the inevitable attack. We are being hailed by Fleet Command, Dae-jung said. They want us to surrender for a rest. Tell them we have critical intelligence about the enemy, Taemin said. Tell them we know how to win. There was a long pause. Then Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen. The old man looked even more tired than before. His eyes were haunted. Captain Taemin, you have 30 seconds to convince me not to destroy your ship. The Devourers are controlled by a central hub, Taemin said quickly. It coordinates their attacks. During the final assault, the hub will be at the center of their swarm. If we destroy it, they lose coordination. They become vulnerable. Admiral Chen studied him. How do you know this? We found a scientist who has been studying them for 3 years. She has proof. We also discovered a method to hide from them. We call it the Ghost Protocol. We can teach it to your ships. Even if what you say is true, how do we reach this hub? It will be protected by their entire force. We create a distraction, Taemin said. Every ship attacks at once. Maximum chaos. While they are busy responding, one ship uses the Ghost Protocol to drift through the swarm undetected. That ship reaches the hub and destroys it. One ship, Admiral Chen repeated. A suicide mission, yes, sir. A suicide mission. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Come aboard the flagship. Bring your scientist and her data. If this is real, we need to know everything. The Defiant docked with the HKSS Liberation, the flagship of Earth's defense fleet. Taemin, Minji, Yuna, and Dae-jung presented their findings to the fleet commanders. They showed the data. They explained the hub. They demonstrated how the Ghost Protocol worked. The admirals were skeptical at first, but as they reviewed the evidence, their doubts faded. Minji's research was thorough. The Ghost Protocol had worked at New Kyoto. This might actually be possible. We need volunteers, Admiral Chen said finally. A ship and crew willing to make the final run to the hub. The Defiant will do it, Taemin said immediately. No, said Admiral Park, another senior officer. The Defiant is too valuable. You are the only ones who have successfully used the Ghost Protocol. We need you to train other crews. He looked around the room. We need a volunteer crew for a one-way mission. Silence fell over the command center. Outside the windows, the Devourer swarm continued to grow. They would attack soon, maybe hours, maybe days. But soon, Taemin returned to the Defiant and gathered his crew. He explained the plan. He told them that the fleet needed them to train others in the Ghost Protocol. He told them another ship would make the final run. The crew listened in silence. Then Jiwoo spoke. No other crew knows the Defiant like we do. No other crew has lived through what we have. If anyone is going to make that run, it should be us. You would all die, Taemin said. We are already dead, Yuna said. The moment the Devourers appeared, we were dead. Everyone is dead unless someone stops them. We might as well be the ones to try. I have a daughter on Earth, Yunji said quietly. She is 6 years old. If we do nothing, she dies when the Devourers attack. If we do this, maybe she lives. That is enough for me. One by one, each crew member spoke. They all said the same thing. They would go. They would fight. They would give their lives if it meant humanity survived. Taemin felt tears on his cheeks. He did not try to hide them. Then we go together, all of us. No one left behind. The next day, the Devourers attacked. They came in waves, hundreds of ships moving as one. The human fleet met them with everything they had. Plasma fire lit up space. Missiles streaked between ships. The battle was chaos and fire and death. The Defiant waited at the edge of the battlefield. Inside, the crew made their preparations. Yuna set the reactor to overload one final time. But this time, it would not shut down. This time, the energy would keep building until the ship became a bomb. Once we start, we have maybe 10 minutes before the reactor explodes, Yuna said. We need to reach the hub and get close before that happens. 10 minutes, Taemin repeated. Understood. Through the view screen, they watched human ships die. The fleet was fighting bravely, but they were outnumbered. For every Devourer destroyed, 2 human ships fell. It was a losing battle. Then Admiral Chen's voice came through the radio. All ships, this is Fleet Command. The Defiant is making their run. All vessels, maximum attack. Give them the opening they need. Every human ship surged forward at once. They abandoned defensive positions and attacked with suicidal courage. They threw themselves at the Devourers, trading their lives for time and distraction. Now, Taemin said, begin the sequence. The reactor started its overload. Energy built and built. The ship shook. Warning alarms screamed. Then came the bloom of energy, the false death signal. Everything went dark. The Defiant drifted into the swarm. Hyunsu navigated by the stars alone, using minimal thruster burns to guide them deeper. Around them, Devourer ships fought the human fleet. None of them paid attention to the dead wreck drifting through their formation. 5 minutes to critical overload, Yuna said. Her voice was calm. She had accepted her fate. They drifted deeper. The hub became visible, a massive organic structure at the center of the swarm. It pulsed with green light coordinating the attack. Streams of data flowed between it and the other ships. 3 minutes, Yuna said. A Devourer scout passed right next to them. For a moment, Taemin thought they were detected. But the scout moved on. The Ghost Protocol still held. 2 minutes. They were close now. Maybe 1,000 meters from the hub. Close enough, Sungho, Taemin said. Fire everything. The Defiant's weapons came online. Plasma cannons fired at point-blank range into the hub. Missiles launched. Every weapon the ship had unleashed at once. The hub took the damage. Its surface ruptured. Green light spilled out. The other Devourers immediately detected the threat and turned toward the Defiant. 1 minute, Yuna said. Is the hub destroyed? Jiwoo asked. Not yet, Daejung said, watching his sensors. It is damaged but still coordinating. Then we finish it, Taemin said. He took manual control of the ship. Everyone, hold on, he fired the engines. The Defiant, reactor critical and ready to explode, accelerated straight toward the hub. The Devourers fired at them. Energy beams tore through the hull. Sections depressurized. The medical bay exploded and Yoonji was gone in an instant. 30 seconds, Yuna said from the engine room. The ship shook. More weapons fire. The cargo bay tore open. 3 crew members were sucked into space. Sungho screamed as his console exploded, but he kept firing the weapons until the end. 20 seconds. Half the ship was gone. The bridge was exposed to vacuum. But they were still moving, still accelerating toward the hub. 10 seconds. The Defiant hit the hub at full speed. The ship's hull crumpled. The reactor reached critical mass. Taemin's last thought was of Earth, blue and beautiful, still alive. The Defiant exploded. The blast was bigger than a dying star. It vaporized the hub instantly and destroyed every Devourer ship within 100,000 kilometers. The shockwave spread outward, rattling ships across the entire battlefield. And across the system, every Devourer ship froze. The hub was gone. The coordination was broken. They became individual vessels, confused and disoriented. All ships engage. Admiral Chen's voice boomed across the fleet. Take them down. The human ships attacked with renewed fury. Without coordination, the Devourers fell one by one. They tried to adapt, but without the hub telling them how, they adapted slowly, independently. The humans had the advantage now. The battle lasted another 6 hours. When it ended, Earth was saved. The Devourer swarm was destroyed. Some escaped back into deep space, but the invasion was broken. Humanity had won. 3 months later, a monument was built in Earth's capital city. It was a simple black stone with 73 names carved into it. At the top were the words, "They devoured world after world, but one human ship defied them." People came from across the system to see it. They brought flowers and candles. They stood in silence and remembered. Admiral Chen came often. He would stand before the monument and read the names Taemin, Yuna, Jiwoo, Hyunsu, Daejung, Sungho, Yoonji, Minji, and 65 others. They were criminals and deserters, he said once to Admiral Park. I called them cowards. They were heroes, Park replied. They saved us all. In orbit, human ships now use the Ghost Protocol. They hunted the remaining Devourers across the galaxy, striking from silence and vanishing into darkness. The prey had become the hunter, and in every ship the crews told the story of the Defiant. The mining vessel that became a warship, the crew that became a legend, the sacrifice that saved humanity. The Devourers learned fear that day. They learned that humans, when pushed to the edge, would fight back with everything they had. Because